Wasabi guys, welcome back to another 10 cards to reprint video. This series where I discuss 10 cards that could use a reprint pretty badly. They don't have to be the most expensive cards that could use a reprint, but ones that if they were reprinted, it would make them a lot easier to find and use in decks. As always, if you appreciate these videos or any of the ones I create, please subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. We're getting very close to the 40,000 subscriber milestone, so I want to thank you all for that. The first card to talk about is one that has been reprinted in a Commander product, as well as a Commander anthology, and that is Urza's Incubator. Originally from Urza's Destiny, this is a must-have for many tribal decks because it significantly reduces the costs to play all of your creatures. This really helps if you're playing a larger tribe, let's say you're playing dinosaurs, or angels, or dragons. Those tend to be more expensive on average compared to something smaller like elves, even vampires. Being able to choose the creature type for your deck and making all of them cost 2 less to play is how you're going to get ahead, and unfortunately, the cheapest version, which I believe is the Commander Anthology, being $44 makes it harder to justify for many players. There's already a lot of cost reduction in many of the tribes where you would want this. I think if the price were lower, like say $10, $15, more people would consider playing it. Next up is Extraplanar Lens for Mirrodin. This has a reprint technically in Kaladesh. If you like the inventions, I guess that counts, but as a serious reprint, it didn't make it any easier to find. This goes out to a lot of you Commander players who play monocolors, and you're playing things like Caged Sun. Let's say you're in black, you're also playing things like Cryptghast. You're looking to play as many mana doublers as you can, because if you do that, then that's more mana you could spend on an X-costed mana sink like an Exsanguinate or a Torment of Hailfire. This is very popular for those strategies, and it is also one of the ways that you could take advantage of snow-covered basic lands. Since you are tapping lands with the same exact name, only that land will be able to tap for an additional. So if your opponent has a regular swamp while you imprinted a snow-covered swamp, they're not getting the benefit off of this, which makes it a little unfortunate that you also have to build around this card, because if you don't have those snow-covered basics, it really defeats the point of playing this. At $35, I'm honestly surprised that this isn't even more expensive, because again, Mirrodin is a really old set, it's almost 20 years ago, and to go that long without a reprint and being a very sought-after artifact, it's definitely like Urza's Incubator. It's going to be harder to justify for the players who are looking for it. Next up, we have one of the best uncommons ever made in Krark Clan Ironworks. Also from that same block in Mirrodin, this is Fifth Dawn. You sacrifice an artifact to add 2 colorless. This is basically the artifact sacrificing version of Ashnod's Altar, which in certain combos makes it better, especially considering we have a lot of combos revolving around treasure tokens and just a lot of artifact tokens that you can sacrifice to really make this powerful. One of the most expensive uncommons you'll find at around $20. To me, this has been a no-brainer for a long time. It would be very easy to throw into a master set. We've had only like a dozen of them, so to be honest, it's not that it's harder to justify, because it totally is. It could be a combo piece, part of your win con, but because it hasn't really been reprinted. It's similar to the previous card where it's gone almost 20 years without a single reprint, and this one's even more baffling because it's an uncommon. Next, we have another uncommon from an even older set, Reconnaissance. Now, we've talked about this card in the Magic Market Watch because it is so bizarre. It's one of the only cards that will do this, where you can just, for no mana at all, remove a target attacking creature you control from combat and untap it. At $14, this is, again, another very expensive uncommon. What I like about it is that it is really unique. You have Krark Clan Ironworks basically being an Ashnod's Altar for artifacts. Well, there really isn't anything else like this that for just 1 mana you can attack without really suffering any of the consequences that you normally would if your opponents can block and kill your creatures. So this is really good and incredibly underrated for commanders like Kaalia, where that's your entire strategy, is to attack with her. All it would really take to stop your strategy is to kill her and then manage whatever else you're cheating into play. With this, you can have your cake and eat it too. It's only 1 white mana, sits on the field. This is another great card that they could include in a master set or even a core set. I don't think it would be that busted. And next up, we have a card that was a special reprint for Amonkhet in the Invocations, as well as a Judge promo. No Mercy at around $44 is again a very unique card. White has ways of preventing creatures from attacking you. Blue has the same thing. Pay some mana or you can't attack me at all. Black is over here saying, come at me, bro, because if you do, your creatures are going to be destroyed. You get a lot of older cards like these from the Urza's block where you're just saying to yourself, how the heck wasn't this on the reserve list? It's rather arbitrary, but it's still holding its value well as an original print, even though the original print is the cheapest version of the card that you can find. Great deterrence, and that's what black does. It's not going to prevent you from doing something, it's going to make you suffer for doing it. Next, we have another card from the Urza's block. Again, this is Urza's Destiny, Repercussion. This is another incredibly unique card that you really don't see its ability on really anything else. This enchantment says whenever a creature is dealt damage, Repercussion deals that much damage to that creature's controller. At around $25, this is still something that's going to make it harder to justify for people who want to build around this in something like a group slug deck. The reason why this could be so powerful is because it is a blasphemous act away from being game over. Blasphemous act being incredibly easy to play when the board is full. That's a 4 mana total win con. So long as your board presence isn't enough to kill you, that's game over. It is such a cool combo. Even if you're not going for that easy win, it's still abusable, it's still entertaining. That's why red is one of the more fun colors to play in Commander, because you never know exactly what you're going to get, you just know it's going to be fun. And with this, it makes combat more entertaining, it makes burn as removal entertaining, and again, it's another one that isn't on the reserve list for some reason. Next, we have Savage Beating from Darksteel. We get a lot of these cards that were never reprinted going back to Mirrodin, and this is yet another one of them, and I could talk about a lot of other expensive extra combat spells, but Savage Beating for some reason is one of the only ones that has gone without a reprint this long. It is a popular strategy, it's a fun win con for a lot of people in Commander. I would say it's definitely more tame than taking additional turns. That could be very tedious and boring to watch. Additional combats, at least you're interacting with other players. And this was back when they used Entwine, so if you paid an additional amount of mana, you're getting both double strike for your creatures and you're getting an additional combat phase. So those two, you add them together at instant speed during your combat. It's very easy to understand why people want this one specifically, because it has the greatest chance of actually winning you the game by not just giving you that extra chance of attacking them, but making your creatures more lethal. Next, we have Mana Bond, a green enchantment from Exodus. It's another one that isn't on the reserve list, even though it's also never been reprinted. During your discard phase, you may choose to put all land cards from your hand into play. If you do, you discard the rest of your hand. This is almost $40. And while I don't think it sees a ton of Commander play, it is no doubt something that you would want if you've been spending the whole game drawing into more lands, using something like Tatyova, using something like AC, using something like the Gitrog monster. That happens a lot in those decks, where even if you have additional land drops, you're finding yourself just drawing into nothing but lands. If you have the creatures out there to get the landfall triggers, this is potentially one of the most powerful plays. Dumping all your lands from your hand into play, rather than just discarding down to 7, is something that could win you the game if you have a lot of ridiculous landfall triggers. End result is you are going to have to discard the rest, but if you get the triggers to draw into more cards, then that's exactly what you were looking for. And keep in mind, it just puts them into play, it doesn't put them into play tap like so many newer cards do, which makes it even more busted if you have responses. And next we have Beacon of Creation from 5th Dawn. You might have noticed the trend here going back to Urza's block, going back to the original Mirrodin block, is because there's so many gems that have gone without a reprint forever. Beacon of Creation is one of them. You might be familiar with a lot of the Beacon cards, Beacon of Unrest, probably being one of the most well-known ones, but this one is really not that bad either. But around $17, I really think they could include this in a pre-con deck, and it would fit in pretty well. You put a 1/1 green insect creature token into play for each forest you control, and then you shuffle it back into its owner's library. It's a fun card, it's recyclable, and it rewards you later in the game when you have a ton of forests by giving you a green insect for each one of them. Newer strategies in Commander I think would love this card. You're getting so much value for only 4 mana. It's been a pretty underrated card for a while. And the last card to talk about is Tooth and Nail. Again, another card originally from Mirrodin. It got a reprint in Modern Masters, but that Modern Masters set was a long time ago, and it's still one of the more explosive green cards ever made. It's another Entwine card where you can do both if you pay an extra 2 mana, so 9 total. Sounds like a lot, but in Commander that's actually pretty easy to get to. And considering that in Commander it could win you the game right then and there, it's well worth all 9 of that mana. So you can either search your library for up to 2 creature cards, put them into your hand, or you can put up to 2 creature cards from your hand into play. The Entwine lets you do both, so you'll be able to cheat both of them into play if you searched up 2. Don't really have to go beyond that to tell you why searching for combo pieces is powerful, but just that that it is. I haven't really seen it played as much in Commander, which is why I really think it should be reprinted. I know a lot of people would say the opposite. If a card sees a lot of play, you should reprint it, but this would shake it up a bit. This would reintroduce this card as a combo piece, as a threat in the format, especially because we have so many people that are crazy about CEDH. You go back to like 2012, 13, where competitive EDH wasn't really that much of a thing, and this was a dominant card. So for $25, I don't know if people are as willing to pay for it now, knowing that it is a lot more mana to win the game compared to a lot of competitive cards. Again, I love the Urza's block. It's probably my favorite. Just a lot of cards in there that could use a reprint pretty badly. Mirrodin's another great one. So many underrated gems, and so many cards that, despite being underrated, are still gonna cost you a decent amount of money. This is Commander Void. Have a wonderful day. I will see you all next time.